Welcome to the Gridiron Expert, where we are doing something a little different this year. We are providing y'all in-depth analysis with every single team with our team previews. And our next episode of our team previews is the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. And I have Richie O'Leary here to go over the Scarlet Knights with me today. Richie, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. Kind of just waiting like everyone else for football season. Couple more months. We're almost there.
That's right. It's almost here, and in today's world, it's there's hardly any off season. There's really no true off season anymore, and so there's certainly been a lot of news regarding the transfer portal and NIL and teams poaching from one another. And so
You're
we've
not
got a little
kidding.
bit of it all this year, regardless of whether or not it's August or September.
Yep. Yeah,
So
no. It's been an interesting offseason for sure. NIL's thrown a wrench into everything, basically. And now everyone, like you said, is poaching. Now teams are calling out one another. There's never a day off. It's pretty fun.
yeah, it's certainly entertaining. And of course, we'll see in the near future if there's any regulation regarding NIL and the portal and whatnot. But in regards to the Rutgers Scarlet Knights, a lot of returning production. And Bill Connolly's
Mhm.
opening returning production that he normally does in late February, Rutgers ranks in the top 10 in returning production. And this is a team that had a lot going for them last year going into the season in terms of they had a lot of returning production last year. They had a
Mhm.
manageable schedule. Of course, the schedule gets a lot more difficult, and we'll talk about that later. But starting offensively, Ethan Kaliakmanis is back, and if I'm not mistaken, was he the only quarterback to attempt a pass last year for Rutgers?
Yeah, no, Ethan's been great. Ethan is everything that Greg Schiano wants in a quarterback. Someone that's it's weird to say accurate because his numbers overall in the season don't scream accuracy. When you look, I think it's like 54 or 55% on the year completion percentage. But you got to take away a couple different games where he had some minor errors here and there. But he's just literally what Greg Schiano wants. He doesn't want to chuck the ball down the field. He's not an explosive offense. It's all run game, run game, run game, and then a complementary pass game to just help you out here and there. But we saw flashes of what he can do last season, especially in the last game of the year in the bowl game, the Rate Bowl against Kansas State. Put up a couple hundred yards, couple passing touchdowns, looked really good, really fluent. Offense put up 40 points, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, like is this the future?" Like
Yeah.
Rutgers doesn't do this ever, so it was very weird to see. But yeah, no, I thought 20 most passing yards from a Rutgers quarterback. I think it was in 8 or 9 years. So it's been a while since they had a solid quarterback play like this. He doesn't or he doesn't force many things, doesn't throw many picks. I think he had 18 and 7 on the year for touchdown to interception ratio. But yeah, just a very solid quarterback. Now, what are they going to do with the run game this year? That's the
Yeah.
bigger question.
So with Kaliakmanis, do you think that there is room for growth, or do you think he pretty much is who he is and he does what he's asked?
I think there's definitely room for growth. I think the wide receiver core got better, so I think that's going to help him out a lot. Now, if you look back to his best season prior to this, technically it was when Kirk Shiraka was his OC in year one at Minnesota, where he had to step in for, I forget who the quarterback was at Minnesota, but someone got
Oh,
injured.
it was probably that 6-year quarterback they had. Was it
Yeah, I can't remember
Tanner
his name.
something? Is that his
Oh,
name?
Tanner Morgan.
Yeah, Tanner
Right.
Morgan.
Yeah. Yeah. So he stepped in for him in 2022 as I think it was a redshirt freshman at the time. And did pretty solid under OC Kirk Shiraka. Now Kirk Shiraka leaves for Rutgers in 23. His numbers aren't great at Minnesota, and then all of a sudden he reunites with Kirk, and now all of a sudden they're back up again. I think he has the potential for a 3,000 yard passing season. Now I might be stretching it a little bit, but he put up 2,700 yards last year. Everyone, the wide receiver core is basically the same and got better, in my opinion, via the transfer portal. So I think that the sky's the limit for him. I think he could have a very solid year, and I think he could be Rutgers' first drafted quarterback since Mike Teal was, I think, in 2000. What was it, 2009, 2008?
Gosh, off the top of my head, I don't remember.
Yeah, it's been
Um,
so long. That's the problem. We shouldn't be talking about this long of a gap, but here we are.
And when I think about Rutgers, I think about their ball control offense and running the football, really good offensive line the
Mhm.
last few years, really. And going to the running back room. So Kyle Monangai, I'm going to admit this, he was actually my favorite running back in college football over the last 2 years. I was like a Kyle Monangai enthusiast. But he's gone, but there is quality depth here.
Mhm.
Um, so at the very least, I would expect multiple guys to see the field, but has anyone stood out this year?
Yeah, so Antoine Raymond's really interesting. He was a true freshman last year, and not just a true freshman. People don't realize this, but he was a four-star in the 2025 recruiting class. So he skipped his entire senior year of high school. He was able to. He had the credits and everything. And his school ended up actually shutting down their football program, shutting down the school completely down in Florida, Clearwater International Academy. So it was kind of a pick and choose situation. And he came to Rutgers campus in June for a visit and he was kind of like, or I'm sorry, for spring ball last year for a visit, and was asked the staff like, "Hey, I have my credits. Can I enroll early?" And is the staff going to turn away a four-star recruit? No, like, come on,
Right.
we'll take you on board 100%. And I actually expected him the red shirt because they had Sam Brown, they had Kyle Monangai, who you mentioned, Jay Sean Benjamin, a couple of new freshmen too, and Ed Guerrier and Gabriel Winovich at the time. And I really thought he was just going to redshirt, and he came in and out of nowhere just starts getting carries. And I'm like, okay, this kid actually looks pretty good. Now, okay, he did it against Howard. All right, let's see what else he. Okay, he dominated against Akron late. All right, let's see what he can do in Big Ten play. And all of a sudden, you see him go for 22 for 73 against Minnesota, and you're like, oh my God, this kid's like supposed to be a high school senior right now. And he's going to probably lead the running back room, but it is a running back room by committee, in my opinion, just because they did bring in CJ Campbell from Florida Atlantic. He's a guy that had a couple hundred yards at FAU last year. I think he had 800 yards, 900 yards on the season, but he's a really
FAU
good,
was pretty good at running the football last
yeah.
year.
And
So,
he's a really good pass catcher too. I think he had 500 receiving yards as well. So kind of brings a different dynamic to the game. Now Kirk Shiraka really hasn't thrown the ball to his running backs at all, but I think when you have that weapon in the backfield, you kind of have to use it, right? So between him, Antoine Raymond, they have some young guys, and or I shouldn't say young anymore. Jay Sean Benjamin's a third year guy, has shown flashes. Ed Guerrier looked pretty good in the spring game. So I think it's going to be those top two guys kind of just rotating in and out, just trying to see whoever's the hot hand and go from there.
yeah, this is a pretty deep room you mentioned. So,
Hmm.
Samuel Brown, yeah, Antoine Raymond, CJ Campbell, um, yeah, Deshaun Benjamin. Yeah,
Hmm.
this is probably the best running back room that Rutgers has had. Of course, last couple of years has been really good, obviously with Monungai, but the running
Hmm.
back room, do you think it's the strength for Rutgers this year?
Yeah, I think. Oh, it's pound the rock, control the tempo of the game, control the clock, and you could win. Is it going to be pretty most of the time? No, probably not. But if you can get 4 yards a carry, every fourth carry, you're getting a first down, and that's all you got to kind of do. And when you do that, you're also, like I said, controlling the clock. And if you can control that, you should win the game, I should say.
So you mentioned at the beginning that you think Ethan Kaliak-Manis has room for growth because of what the receiving core looks
Hmm.
like this year and the improvement there. So Miller is going to be missed, but Strong and Duff return, and then a
Hmm.
transfer, an intriguing transfer, DT Sheffield from UNT. And this guy is really electric when he has the ball in his hands. He's a really effective slot receiver. So do you
Hmm.
think this receiver room is like tops in the like top half in the Big Ten?
I'd say with 18 teams, yeah, it's it's crazy to say that out loud, but yeah, I'd say it's probably near the top half. I mean, Ian Strong has proven that he's a reliable deep threat. KJ Duff, Corey Duff has really kind of came into his own later in the season when when he was kind of not forced into the starting role, but just kind of emerged as a starter, I should say. I think those two combined for that length on the outside, they're both 6'4" ish, 6'5" ish, tall, lengthy receivers. It's like old school football, basically, where you have the tall, lengthy guys out there instead of like the modern day game where it's all these shorter, more electric guys in space. And it's like, all right, get them the ball at that like 5 to 10 yard mark down the field and then let them go crazy. Whereas these guys are more deep ball threats. But add in a guy like DT Sheffield, who is that electric, smaller receiver. And I think that they have a really nice group of receivers. I think you saw it last year with Dymere Miller, who led the team with 59 receptions for 750 yards, had a couple touchdowns. I think DT Sheffield's even better than him. So that's where it gets really exciting. And I've had so many guys at the lower levels in the G5 level that cover G5 programs say not even that covered DT Sheffield at North Texas, but we're covering teams that went up against him and just tell me like how insanely electric this kid is. So you add that in with Ian Strong, who could potentially play himself into a draft pick this year. KJ Duff, who really emerged as a true freshman last year, and you have a nice little core group there.
I'm pretty familiar with DT because I actually just graduated from UNT this past December,
Okay,
and
okay, so you really know then.
yeah, so he transferred in from Washington State, and he was our number one breakthrough player, like everyone that either covered or watched UNT football a lot. He was like our number one breakthrough player for UNT outside of maybe Chandler Morris. So yeah, he's a very electric player. Now I do want to mention though the receiving room. It seems like it's rather maybe top heavy with the starters because I see a lot of youngsters here
Mhm.
in the second and third string. Are there like high expectations here? Are there some freshmen, sophomore that we need to watch out for?
Yeah, I'd say definitely. Ben Black is a guy who had his moments at times, had some flusters at times too. There was I forget what game it was. It might have been actually the Kansas State game where he was wide open down the sideline and just ball hit him in the hands and just bopped out. And it was like, oh my God, that's an easy touchdown for a 40, 50-yard touchdown, and he just dropped it. But then you go back to a different game earlier in the season and he ends up catching that ball. And it's like, okay, well, there you go. There's the flashes. So he's pretty electric. He's going to be a true sophomore this year. Burned his red shirt last year. They really like him. Fama Toure was a guy who just actually got the spring award for most improved offensive player throughout the spring. That's the Mark Mills Award. So he actually flashed. He did get dinged up in the spring game, so I'm trying to see what the status is there. In an ideal world, obviously he's healthy, but can't really say for certain. And then it's really a big question mark about who else is going to emerge. We saw freshman receivers emerge in that spring game. Vernon Allen the third had like 90 yards, had some amazing catches. We put out a little highlight tape of how good he was in that spring game. Michael Thomas the third is kind of starting to emerge as a slot guy, true freshman as well. And then the last but not least, Jordan Houston also had 40, 50 yards in that spring game. Very strong freshman wide receiver class. In an ideal world, they don't see the field too much, and they don't really rotate their receivers a ton either. So it's probably those top three starters I mentioned, Ben Black and Fama Toure, and then kind of hopefully you don't have to use those freshmen until it's garbage time.
So throughout the offense here, and we'll get to the offensive line here in a second,
Mhm.
are there any position groups besides quarterback that you look at and say, okay, we have to stay healthy here? I don't love the depth here.
It's a good question. Probably receiver. I think that's a fair case to say. Like I like Ben Black. I like his explosiveness at receiver, and I think he could fill in. God forbid someone did get hurt. Knock on wood. But other than that, it's like Fama Toure, like I said, flashed a little bit, but he hasn't really played at all. He's entering year three or year four now, and when you're not playing by that long, it's kind of like, okay, does he have any? Not no offense to him specifically, but it's like you have to question these guys. Like, are they ready? Or can they get out there and actually produce stuff, produce stats? Um, so we'll kind of wait and see. I'd say receivers definitely a little bit scary. I don't want to say offensive line because you said we're going to talk about it in a few, but I would say offensive tackle specifically scares me a lot. And yeah, that's probably, and other than quarterback, obviously,
Yeah.
which you mentioned, but it's probably those two spots right now.
Yeah, and the reason why I framed it that way is because in today's
Mhm.
world, it's hard to keep your backups, especially at quarterback, obviously, with the portal
Oh
and
yeah.
time. And so for most teams, there's going to be a drop off from their first to second string, especially at quarterback. So that's why I framed it that way.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, AJ Suresh is, I think, going to be the future for Rutgers. He should be the future quarterback for 26, 27, 28. Just he hasn't played a single snap. So it's very concerning. So that's why it's hard not to say quarterback because Athan's just been so consistent. And I think AJ Suresh will be very good. It's just he's a redshirt freshman, was hurt last year, didn't see a single snap. And it's like, okay, now what's going on?
So Shepard in the quarterback room, is he third
He,
string?
he's gone, actually. He's already in the portal.
Oh, God. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, he entered 2 days before the spring game, so like a week ago, 2 weeks ago.
Okay. So you mentioned there about the offensive line, specifically left tackle. So I do have a specific question regarding that. So four
Mhm.
starters do return from last year's unit, but last year's star left tackle, Holland
Mhm.
Pierce, I believe he signed a free agent contract with the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yep, correct.
An experienced unit overall, but who's a left tackle, and do you think this group can sustain injury?
So they're going to move Tyler Needham over from right tackle to left tackle. That is the plan as of right now. They are actively looking in the transfer portal for a potential starting left tackle. They already added two tackles in the portal over the past 2 weeks. So those guys are going to come in and compete in Zach Gamlin and Mashu Giwa. Zach Amwin comes over from Illinois, didn't play in his first 2 years there. Shugiwa was a starter and one of the better FCS players, second team FCS All American. I don't know if either's going to be ready to take that role over, but it sounds like Tyler Needham's going to be the guy, with Taj White stepping up at right tackle. And that's kind of how they framed it last year too. Like Tyler Needham ended up going down last year at right tackle, and that's where Taj White started at right tackle for the last 3 games or 4 games of the season. So, can they sustain an injury? Absolutely not. There's just no one behind either of those guys is really is ready, and that's the big concern.
Gotcha. Yeah, see, the thing is, like going in the portal this time of year, the spring portal is not as rich in talent as the winter portal is. And especially like when you're looking towards the offensive line
Hmm.
and defensive line, it's really difficult to find like those upper end quality guys, especially interior defensive line and offensive tackles. They're just really rare to find this time of year. And there's like I know there's another
Yeah.
Northeast team that's been looking to get offensive line help. Syracuse. They've been
Hmm.
attacking the portal a lot. They have some
Yeah.
questions up front as well. So they've got some guys. Of course, a lot of those guys haven't really played a ton. They got that Cam Pringle kid from
Yeah,
South
he's
Carolina. That'll be
very good.
interesting. Yeah. So oh, and then so Jalen Matthews. So he transferred
Hmm.
out. Of course,
Yep.
oh, I shouldn't. He was a true freshman. He was a 2025 recruit.
Yeah.
So what did him leaving, did that hurt the offensive line outlook this year?
Not really. Him leaving hurt the offensive line because he wasn't going to play this year. He's a true freshman. They knew what they were getting in him. This is a kid that decommitted a couple times. Decommitted from I shouldn't say a couple times. Decommitted from Penn State. Committed to Rutgers. There was rumors he was going to decommit from Rutgers. Ended up signing with Rutgers in January. Enrolls in January. Ends up leaving a couple months later. I know he actually visited Syracuse, but they ended up getting Cam Pringle, so obviously things didn't work out there. Ends up committing to Florida State now. And I hope he does well down there. But it wasn't really him that hurt them. It was more so Dominic Rivera entered the transfer portal. He was a third year guy, was probably their backup left tackle and backup, I guess you could say tackle in general, because they train these guys to play multiple positions across the line.
Yeah.
Do I agree with it? I don't like that philosophy personally. I think if you're a tackle, stay there. And you could put them at left or right. If you're a guard, your guard, stay there. But like Taj White, for example, filled in when Brian Felter went down last year, a guard. Then all of a sudden the right tackle goes down. Taj White goes to right tackle. And it's like you're just kind of mixing and matching and just trying to get those best five linemen out there. But losing Dominic Rivera really hurt. And then losing Shedrick Rhodes hurts a little bit. He didn't play for Rutgers in his lone year with the program, transferred in from Ohio last year. And it goes back to what you're saying. Like that was a spring transfer edition last year, and he didn't play a single snap. He came into camp a little bit out of shape. And for Ohio standard, University of Ohio standard, I'm sorry, Ohio University standards, maybe he's in shape over there. But when he comes to the Big Ten, he just wasn't ready. He wasn't game ready. And it goes to show you that that spring portal window, it's just a guessing game at that point.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like, hey, maybe this guy can help us. He comes in, doesn't do a single thing for the whole year, and it's like, okay, never mind. Like, it is tough. It is a pure guessing game.
Yeah, yeah, and going like through all my notes the last few years during the spring and summer, I
Hmm.
always have like a team in bold if they attacked the spring portal window for a particular position group. It's
Hmm.
always alarming to me. It's like, okay, something's not right here. Like there's a reason why they're going after a bunch
Yeah.
of guys. And so,
Hmm.
you mentioned some of the injuries last year offensively, but there were also a number of injuries on the defensive side of the football for Rutgers. And man, it was
Yep.
so unfortunate for the Scarlet Knights last fall because they had a pretty manageable schedule and experienced roster, and
Hmm.
it was looking like a could have been a pretty big year for Rutgers. So let's start on the defensive line. So Hamilton and Lewis are gone, but so they played a lot of guys here last year, and a
Yeah.
decent amount of that production is back. They were not tremendous against the run.
Hmm.
So how does this unit look for this fall?
So they're kind of, it's interesting you say against the run because it starts with their linebacker core. Their linebacker core was really banged up last season. Mohamed Toure was expected to come in, be one of the starters again. He was a team captain for multiple years. And he ends up tearing his ACL for the second time in 3 seasons right before the season starts in training camp. And it's like, okay, one guy down. Tyreen Powell was already pushing it a little bit because he tore. I'm sorry, he broke his wrist last season in January during winter workouts, tore his Achilles. And it's like, okay, is he going to be that back for game one? Do you even need him for game one versus Howard and game two versus Akron? Probably not. Game three versus Virginia Tech, that's when you really needed him. And it showed a little bit, but he was a shell of what he used to be. This was a guy that was could have been a draft pick if he left, ended up leaving in following the 2023 season. Ended up staying, gets an injured again, and it's like, okay, now he's just hurting his draft stock more and more. Ends up signing an undrafted free agent contract, which is great. But he just was a shell of what he used to be. And when you put in two linebackers with Darrell Jabome and Moses Walker that have no idea, I should say no idea, they just have zero snaps and zero playing experience. You watch them out there, and you could tell that they're just missing. They're reading the wrong gaps. They're reading the wrong the lanes. They're filling the wrong lanes completely. And it's just you're letting run play after run play after run play happen. Now add in the fact that that defensive line was beyond banged up all year, and it's like, okay, now you really can't stop anyone. You have your best defensive lineman, Keontae Hamilton, rotating between defensive tackle, where he is, where he should be, and playing defensive end at some points because Aaron Lewis is banged up, Wesley Bailey's banged up. Your other defensive tackle, Malcolm Ray's banged up. So you're just kind of rotating in pieces. One of their best edge rushers this past season was a preferred walk-on in Jordan Walker. And mind you, he looked very solid at times, but you're playing preferred walk-ons like at this point because of everyone being so banged up. So I think it's a combination of very green linebackers and a defensive line room that just couldn't stay on the field at all. That really caused that poor run defense.
So with all the production that returns this year, I mean, some of those numbers are because of the guys that stepped in last year for the injuries that happened to
Mhm.
return this year. Do you think like this is a worry looking at what happened last year, or do you think this was just an injury issue? They might have, a couple of new players stepping up, but it's not a huge question. I mean, what is your opinion on this?
So they brought like I said before, Darrell Jabome was one of the guys that was really green, and he looked brutal to be honest with you, watching him out there because again, he's just filling wrong gaps, and he's like a muscular dude, big time old school linebacker. Looked good when he filled the gaps correctly. When he wasn't filling the gaps correctly, it was like all hope was lost. He really came into his own later in the season. I believe he actually ended up leading the team in tackles when it was all said and done. Yeah, 105 tackles on the year. So he ended up looking really good towards the end. So it's like, okay, now we have one linebacker spot solidified. And you thought you had the other solidified with Muhammad Toure coming back. Now,
Yeah.
mind you, two injuries, but then he enters the portal, and it's like, okay, now is he even going to be healthy enough to play? Because they just did this last year with Tyreen Powell, where they had an injured linebacker fill in that other starter role, and it just didn't work out too well. So now there's a lot of question marks. They're trying to find another linebacker in the portal. Um, they're going we'll see what they can do there, but they do bring in a very talented defensive line class via the portal. And they added guys like I'm trying to think, Bradley Weaver from Ohio, who's a really good edge rusher,
Yeah.
Eric O'Neill, who's a very, very good edge rusher out of James Madison. I think he was a G5. I know it was all Sun Belt first team, but I don't know if he was. I think he was a G5 All American, and I know they give out these honors like it's candy at this point.
Let's see.
But it
2024 first team All Sun Belt. Yeah.
yeah, he's a very talented edge rusher. You add in some interior guys and Doug Blue Eli, who's just a run stuffer out of South Florida, and Daryl Dengoe, another guy from James Madison. So that's probably your starting defensive line, and that's four transfers. So there's a little bit of a scare there. But I'd argue that these are the best edge rushers Rutgers has had since probably Kamoko Toure back in 2012, 2013.
Wow.
So they're very, very talented, those two guys on the edge. We'll wait and see what they can actually do. I know there's some concern about the defensive tackles. They did bring in another guy via the portal this spring window. Oh no, I'm sorry, Oliver Belletti. That's what it was. From Kent State. He's another solid guy. We'll wait and see what they can kind of do along that interior. But between that and having one solidified starting linebacker, I am a little concerned about teams that are just going to punch it up the gut. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all works out. But there's just a lot of transfers that are probably going to be starting for Rutgers on this defense from top to bottom.
So do you think the depth is okay? So like the starters end up being okay. Do you think the second string can come in and do a good job?
Yeah, I think so. I think that they've kind of realized how important it is to have depth throughout the every unit basically, and they're going out and they're bringing in. They brought in multiple corners. They brought in multiple defensive ends. They brought in three defensive tackles, multiple safeties. Like they're hitting up the G5 ranks at this point in the spring window just to say, like, okay, we cannot have what happened last year again. We're going to go bring in one of Mercer's top safeties. We're going to go bring in the Long Island kid I mentioned, the Kent State defensive tackle. Like they're just making sure that everything is secure and
Yeah.
just God forbid something happens again. And on top of it, they still bring back a lot of guys, like you mentioned before. Now, do you want those guys that played last season to start again? No, you don't. You don't want to see them starting. But if they could put in some snaps here and there as reserves, rotational pieces, that's all you could really ask for. But I think they did a good job of really building depth this year. And now, is it quality depth? To be determined. But I think adding guys that have college experience from even the lower FCS ranks will even help your depth just a little bit more.
And in the secondary, so speaking of transfers, there's a ton of new faces and
Mhm.
transfers in the secondary. So they lose their top five in terms of production and with the DBs.
Yep.
Um, so how is let's see, Chris joins from Mercer, transfers in. Uh, looks like Cam Miller from Penn State, Jacoby Henderson, Marshall. Are
Mhm.
there any standouts here?
Yeah, I mean, you didn't even mention the one returner, Bo Mascow, is going to be a, starter for them. He's probably their lone guy that they're bringing back from last year that was a contributor, so to speak. It's tough to contribute at DB when you have guys like Robert Longerbeam, who was just a sixth round pick, and then you have Eric Rogers, who just signed a deal with I think it was the Chargers. But yeah, no, they brought in Cam Miller, who's probably going to be a solidified starter. Kid they knew since he was a high school recruited him to the very end, ends up committing to Penn State. Started for Penn State last year for I think 8, 9 games. So he'll be a solidified starter probably too. Jacoby Henderson, he's one of those molds of guys that they really brought in from the G5 level over the past couple seasons that they've turned into NFL prospects. So like it starts with damn, I can't remember the kid's name. Christian Braswell from Temple comes in for a couple years. They get these multi-year guys at corner. They bring them in for multiple years. The first year they kind of sit back and they're just a rotational piece. And that second year is when their senior years when they take over as a starter. Ends up playing himself into a seventh round draft pick. Eric Rogers, I just mentioned, did the same thing. Came in from Northern Illinois, rotational piece year one, year two, solidified starter, knows the program now, knows how the defense works. Now he just signs an undrafted free agent contract. So that's kind of the plan with Jacoby Henderson. I think he has a lot of talent. You bring him in, let him learn for a year, let him rotate here and there. He's depth at the very worst, and could step up if need be, and could potentially play himself into maybe an NFL draft pick or maybe even an NFL free agent contract.
Yeah.
They
Oh,
Go
go
on.
ahead.
They also added Jet Elad from UNLV, a safety. Very talented kid. Just one in, or well, I shouldn't say just one technically. He got an injunction in his court case that allows him to play now because of the whole eligibility thing. Apparently, it's a little bit different ruling versus Diego Pavia ruling
Yeah.
from Vanderbilt. But he ended up earning the year of eligibility back, so now he's going to be the starter at safety. They bring back Kaj Sanders, who was a true freshman last year, starting at safety. So like there's guys there. Like they have a nice little unit. They added some nice pieces here and there. It's just a matter of getting all these transfers from, like I said, from top to bottom. It's not just the secondary. It's the transfers at the front four too. So it's going to be a lot of work to get these guys ready. But I think overall, from top to bottom, it's a damn good defense.
Yeah, it looks like, especially at these transfers, um, can step up in their
Mhm.
first year here for Rutgers. Yeah, there's a number of upperclassmen here, so yeah, it looks promising at the very least. What does the depth in the secondary look like for Rutgers this year? Because I see kind of similar to the receivers. I see a lot of freshmen, sophomore, although I do see a couple of seniors here um,
Mhm.
in the safety room. So how does the depth look like?
Yeah, it's pretty solid overall. I don't think there's really much of a concern there. They did, like I said, like you mentioned before, Chris Joins, they added. So we'll see how he kind of fits in. He's a multi-year guy too. So he'll be a backup to start. Al Shadi Salam's been a guy that's been with the program for a long time. He's played a lot of snaps. Trying to think who else. It is kind of young though too. There's guys
Michael
like Sage.
Robinson?
No, he's a walk on. He's probably not going to see the field too much.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. There's guys like Kevin Levy looked pretty solid as a true freshman last year. Jesse O'Fury is going to be a safety that will probably play some snaps. Sage Claudius is a guy they're really high on. Who else? Who else? Isaiah Crumpler, nephew of, or no, nephew? I think he's nephew of Algie Crumpler, former NFL guy, multi-year vet. So yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of there's depth there, a lot of young guys, and they're going to try to get them ready quickly. But there's also some nice pieces there too with the starters. So we'll wait and see. Hopefully they don't have to use the depth.
So I mentioned at the top of the meeting about the schedule. And so last year there was no Penn State, there was no Ohio State, no Oregon, no Michigan, and no Iowa. And now this year the schedule goes from one of the most manageable in the Big Ten to one of the most difficult because now Rutgers is going to be facing Penn State, Ohio State, at Illinois, Oregon. There's also road games against Minnesota, Washington. They'll also have to face the Hawkeyes in their first Big Ten game this fall.
Mhm.
So, what's the floor? What's the ceiling for Rutgers this year?
The floor, 4 wins. That's that's the scary part. Like you mentioned, it's not easy. It's these last 4 games of the season. I shouldn't even say last four because I don't. Maryland goes back and forth every year. It's just it's a rivalry, but not a rivalry. So that one really goes back and forth. But look, it's number 13 Illinois, number one Ohio State, number three Penn State, and that's just a gauntlet to end the season, mind you. I didn't even mention the fact that you have to go. They have Oregon's coming to town
Yeah.
a couple weeks before that. They have to go out to Washington the week before Oregon. So those cross country road games are just brutal on
Yes.
everyone else. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. The floor I'd probably say is about 4 wins because I can't see them not getting at least one Big Ten win.
Yeah,
Maybe yeah. It's just I
the
don't know. The Big
schedule's difficult,
Ten's
but like the roster has some nice players. So yeah.
it does. Yeah, it's a really good roster. The ceiling. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'd say 7 wins would be the ceiling right now.
Yeah.
Just looking through that first three, it's really like easy to first three. Greg Schiano sets it up pretty much like that every time, where you get your out of conference games simple and kind of prep you for the harder in conference games. And I think getting Iowa as first at home, and it's going to be moved to Friday night supposedly, is the ongoing rumor there.
Okay.
I think that atmosphere just makes it any better. It's going to make it look like the atmosphere that's in your background right now, where it's actually a stadium that's filled to the brim, especially if it's a 3-0 Rutgers versus a 3-0 Iowa team. I think you could snag that one against Iowa. I don't think Minnesota is all that good. They have a lot of replacing. Maybe you go 5-0. I think you probably lose across country to Washington. You lose to Oregon. So it's like we're talking 5-2. Purdue's your 6th win. Maryland's your seventh. Maybe you get the sneak one against Illinois. I don't think you'll end up beating Ohio State at Ohio or Penn State late in the season. I think those two programs are probably top of the Big Ten again this year. So I mean, 7 wins right there, and then you go to a solid bowl game. Maybe it's Nashville. Maybe it's I don't even remember what other bowl games are in the Big Ten. Not Orange Bowl.
Um,
One of the
uh,
Florida bowls. I
maybe is
forget.
it the Pinstripe Bowl? Maybe they could go to that one.
No, they actually can't go to that one technically. Due to contracts, you're not allowed to go to it more than twice in like a 6-year span or something
Okay.
like
I
that.
did not know
And they
that.
just went to it 2023 and beat Miami. So
Right.
they just did the Great Bowl in Phoenix. I think I forget the other bowls, man. There's the Duke's Mayo Bowl is another one.
Oh,
So maybe you get that. Maybe Greg Schiano gets drenched in mayo. That's like quietly. I would love to see it. If he finds out I say this though, he'll be a little upset.
looks like I've got a new take for my college football page. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Greg Schiano gets dumped in Mayo. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what everyone wants to see, man. The fan base wants it. I want to see it. I think it'd be hilarious. It's just yeah, anyway, let's move on.
Well, and the unfortunate thing here for Rutgers regarding the schedule is
Mhm.
that your toss-up games, the games that can go your way, the games that
Yeah.
are probably going to be pretty tight in the fourth quarter, most of those are on the road, like
Mhm.
Minnesota, Washington, Illinois. Like I don't think I've seen some rankings with Illinois as like a top 10, top 15 team. In terms of power ratings, they're not there. They could
Mhm.
end up getting there with rankings, but like power ratings would not suggest they're a top 10, top 15 team straight
Yeah.
up. So it's like that's not like, you know, it's not like an unwinnable game for Rutgers if things go right. So
Yeah.
the schedule again, like you mentioned, it doesn't really provide much room for error here.
Mhm.
yeah, it gets a lot more difficult. Well, Richie, thank you for being on the show today. You did a really good job. Before the time left here on our meeting ends up going off here, please tell our viewers where they can find your content.
Yeah, at Rivals Richie on social media, on Twitter, whatever you want to call it, Instagram, all the other good stuff. For more Rutgers content, ruckers.rivals.com, aka the Night Report. Also at Rutgers Rivals on every social media platform. We're on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Hell, we're on TikTok. I didn't think I'd be saying that ever, but we have made a TikTok page, so check that out. But yeah, basically everything Rutgers Rivals. As you can see the logo in the background, the Night Report is our better known name, I guess. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Any Rutgers content you want, we're on YouTube, doing a daily, not daily, weekly podcast too. So check us out on there. But that's yeah, that's pretty much it.
That's awesome. Well, again, Richie, really good job, and looking forward to seeing what a veteran laden squad can do this fall.
Yeah, no problem, Connor. Thanks for having me.